Route 616, your home for all things Marvel main continuity. Hello everybody, this is Ryan, otherwise known as RJ, or RJ Epic One here, and I am back again we have Bill and Dan, Spidey's #1 fan.
Not.
Come on, just because he's better than Batman.
Fuck Chelsea.
Yes, fuck Chelsea.
Fuck Disney. And fuck Spider-Man.
Yeah,
I mean, he is a sexy, sexy man.
I am.
Not you, Spider-Man.
I'm going to pretend you meant me.
I mean, fuck Dan, so yes.
Ow. Cruel. How dare you lump me in with Chelsea and Disney?
You brought this on yourself.
Yeah, whatever. You see what I work with here, people? You see this? You see what I suffer?
The best part is you don't get paid for this, so.
You know, that's a valid point, bastards.
I hope you guys don't unionize. No.
I want 33% of all of what we make on this podcast. None of
right.
it.
That's right.
Yeah, when we make something, we can arrange that. No. So,
our chances of this being monetized are like 1 in a billion.
yeah, essentially. We are back with episode 10 here of Route 616. We've been going for a bit now.
Track.
There's the professionalism to try to get us monetized.
Yeah. Please give us money.
Holding us together by a fucking string. No.
Yeah, we're all sitting on a curb right now, hijacking someone else's internet.
Yeah, I guess there should be a warning here that there has been some internet connections, I'm guessing, in our whole province today, so there is the chance that there's going to be something, we might get cut off, there might be a weird edit at some point, but hopefully not. We're going to pray. Hail Satan, I guess. Hopefully that doesn't happen. So today's lineup, great to start here.
Nice segue.
I know, I didn't know where I was going. So we have a great, oh no, I lost it in the chat. But we have Fantastic Four 13 that we're going to start with. Then we're going to Tales to Astonish 42, Tales of Suspense number 40, Journey in the Mystery number 92, Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandoes, issue number 1, and then last but not least, Fantastic Four number 14. And it's gonna be a lot of fun.
It would be really tough for that to be the least in an episode with this Ant-Man story.
And we're gonna get adventures today, and Dan's gonna get some more synopsis time than he's gotten so far. So this should be a lot of fun. So, Fantastic Four number 13, we have the Red Ghost and his indescribable super apes, a story that is divided among us. We have Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Apparently Steve Ditko's doing some ink in here, so I should have liked this a bit more. We have cover art from Jack Kirby and Dick Ayers. We have Stan Goldberg on colors and Artie Simek on letters. The normal team pretty much, except Steve Ditko's doing some work here. This is a January 1963 release and a 22-page story. And Bill is going to be taking this one, so open us up.
Alright, so this opens with the Fantastic Four confronting a raging inferno inside Reed's lab in the Baxter building, and they're panicking that Reed's probably dead inside it.
Oh, darn.
But then he stretches his way out in some sort of elaborate protective suit that he's got on, and turns out that he had been experimenting with rocket fuel inside, and that caused the fire. So they put the fire out, and then we get to learn how little Reed, and by extension Stan Lee, and by extension Reed, understands about how rockets work, because Stan has concluded that since a meteor fell in Siberia right before the Russian space program began, they must be making rocket fuel from something in the meteor.
Oh, that's so
And
awesome.
so he went to a impact crater and took a piece of a meteor in Arizona and took a piece of a meteor and made his own rocket fuel rods from that. And he's going to use it to try to power a rocket and go to the moon with it. And he's decided it's too dangerous for anyone else to go with him, so he's just going to go alone. But the rest of the Fantastic Four immediately argue that they should go with him, and Thing takes the incredibly persuasive argument of smushing Reed up and shoving him into a vial until he agrees to go along with take them along.
I don't know if they fully hit the mark on it here, but I think this is supposed to be this is supposed to play into Reed's guilt that the last time they all went on a journey like this together, they got messed up and got these powers, so that's why he's trying to go alone.
I think that is where they're going, but they didn't quite hit. But the miss on that part is cancelled out by Thing shoving Reed into a fucking beaker.
It's a beautiful segment of panels.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite panels on this set. And then we cut over to Russia, where Ivan Kragoff is
That's not a Russian name at all.
No. It's totally regional independent. But anyway, he's teaching a gorilla how to operate a rocket ship and rewarding it with bananas. And then he goes into another room where he's got a baboon that he's training to fire weapons, and he wants it really, really angry, so he won't let it have any food. And then he cuts over to a third room where he has an orangutan, which he describes as the most brainless of all, who he has as the engineer, and has been trained to use tools and repair any machine at his command. Because that's the sort of thing you want the most brainless person doing. I mean, it works for Elon Musk.
Oh, wow. That's just mean. Not necessarily untrue, but it's just mean.
I try. And so then we have dueling panels where the two teams are preparing for launch at the same time with their ships. And as they take off, we learn that Kragoff's ship isn't shielded against cosmic rays because he took exactly the wrong lesson from what happened to the Fantastic Four, and has decided that if they got some power from getting some cosmic rays, he will become more powerful by getting all of the cosmic rays. And so he's made his ship out of plexiglass so that it's completely unshielded, and he will get all of the rays possible.
Makes perfect sense.
They fly up and they see each other's ship, and so Johnny, having a new suit that lets him flame on in space, decides to fly over and investigate this other ship. And he flies over and looks in, and since it's made out of plexiglass, he can easily see what's happening inside. And he sees Kragoff and the apes. They called them apes, but one of them is actually a monkey. And the apes see Johnny. And so the gorilla starts ripping up machinery to throw at Johnny. But it doesn't work. It turns out that the gorilla had gained super strength by exposure to the cosmic rays. I missed the section where they went through the cosmic rays already. But they're kind of learning it to power at the same time. But Kragoff threatens the gorilla with a Tommy gun, so he does not throw the giant bank of machinery directly through the side of the ship trying to hit Johnny. But then the Tommy gun turns into the baboon, and it turns out that the baboon has gained the ability to change shape into anything. So it's a Skrull monkey now. And then he goes to the orangutan, and he's like, that's too bad. Nothing happened to the orangutan. And then it turns out that the orangutan is magnified, and it uses its magnetic powers to launch Johnny away from the ship. And so Johnny flies back to the Fantastic Four ship and goes back in just before the atmosphere in his suit runs out. And they realize that the apes have superpowers, and Kragoff probably has superpowers as well. And they realize that who he is. He's the Red's top space pioneer, and he's been vowing to be the first human on the moon. And so they arrive on the moon, beating him slightly, as far as we can tell, and start looking around. And they find some sort of weird structure on the moon. And Reed and Johnny and Sue take off as fast as they can and just kind of leave Ben behind. And so Ben gets pissed and kicks at a rock, but it turns out it's the baboon, and it attacks him. And then the other apes jump on and start attacking him too, but he easily drives them away. And then Kragoff confronts him, so he tries to punch Kragoff, but goes straight through him as Kragoff turns invisible, because he's gained the power to basically be a ghost, and named himself the Red Ghost. And so he stays invisible and grabs a stick.
This sucks.
I actually found this quite enjoyable. And tries to hit Ben with it. But just then, someone tells him to put down the weapon because the Watcher commands him. And the apes are forced back by a wave of energy and trapped in little bubbles by this weird big-headed alien that we see. And this is our first exposure to Uatu, the Watcher. And
Bet you didn't see that coming.
I mean, anyone who knows of the blue area of the moon probably saw it coming.
It's wild that they didn't give it
I'm
away
amazed they had the restraint to keep him off the cover.
Yeah.
And so he gives a truncated version of his origin, in that his people have dedicated their lives to observing the progress of life throughout the galaxy, and they've been traveling around and watching it everywhere. And he's on the moon watching the human race, but he's broken the order of his civilization by breaking up their fight. And
because he's just a watcher. He just watches.
Yes, but you'll come to learn that Uatu is very bad at his job. And apparently the dog agrees with me. And so he's not actually worried about the chance of the different factions fighting on Earth. He just wants to prevent these specific humans from fighting in his backyard where they'll break his shit. So he decides he's going to have a fight between Kragoff and Thing to settle once and for all which group one got to go to the moon, or got to claim to be at the moon. And they're just about to square off when this arm reaches over a ridge from miles away and grabs Ben and yanks him back. And Reed's like, "Where were you? We found evidence that someone must still be living in these weird buildings." And Ben's just like, "Yeah, I know."
Sorry about that, guys. People at the door.
No worries. And Ben's just like, "Yeah, I know. It's the Watcher. He wants us to fight the commie." But instead of going to fight Kragoff, they get into the Watcher's house and start poking around in his stuff until he zaps them over to where he wants them to fight. And it's this old ruined city on the moon. And so they're getting ready to fight, and Reed starts walking forwards to confront everyone. And Kragoff zaps him with a freeze gun that covers him in ice. And so he's frozen into a human statue. And then Kragoff just grabs Sue because she's a woman and therefore useless in 1963. And this makes Ben and Johnny mad. So they charge at him. But Johnny gets taken out by the baboon, turning into a giant sheet of asbestos and wrapping him up. And the gorilla throws Ben, but Ben immediately starts coming back, and the gorilla just does Hulk's ground stomp and stomps a big hunk of machinery up, and Ben's stuck on top of it. And so Kragoff gloats about how the moon is theirs, and they've beat the Fantastic Four. And so they're going to leave and go back to Russia and brag about how they control the moon, and communists are going to rule the world. And for security, the gorilla takes Sue with him. And they all go to get back onto Kragoff's ship. No, it's not Kragoff's ship. It's a random other vessel they found on the moon, which goes underground into some sort of like weird underground tunnel thing. And Johnny gets Ben down from up on top of the big piece of machinery he's stuck on, and they thaw out Reed. And the three of them plot to go get Sue back, and so they get this like tube thing that looks like the casing to a jet engine, and they just make a jet engine by having Johnny fly inside it while they ride it. And Reed goes and starts digging around in the buildings of the dead civilization, and he finds their scientific devices and figures he can make something useful from that. We cut back to Kragoff, who's in some sort of underground facility, and he's bragging about his powers. He's got Sue locked behind a force field, and Sue starts exploring, so she short-circuits the force field and gets out, but now she's in the room with the super apes. But they found the food supplies and all started eating because Kragoff's been starving them to keep them compliant. And so after they've eaten enough, they decide to go out, and so they just smash down the door and leave themselves, and Sue just follows them out. And then Kragoff tries to lure Johnny and Thing into some sort of trap he's made with a disintegrator ray. But just before he gets them, Sue walks out and is like, "Hey, he's planning to trap you. Don't go in there." So they stop, and she turns invisible and goes in first, so he can't disintegrate them because he can't see her. And then Johnny peeks out around the corner and throws a fireball in and melts the disintegrator ray. And so Kragoff tries to climb into the wall to hide, and he climbs up through the...
Kragoff tries to take off because they're tired of him ripping them off.
Yes.
Because he's slacking off.
Yeah. And so he climbs up and he gets into the into the Watcher's house.
What?
Ryan clearly does not enjoy this story.
I've never been more tempted to cut somebody's mic in my life.
Gosh.
Mine or Dan's?
Then I would be shut off?
Because if you cut my mic, then you get to finish summarizing this.
Oh, I definitely meant Dan's.
Okay. And he gets into the Watcher's house and starts poking around. The Watcher catches him there and transports him to Limbo, where he will remain for all eternity until the next time they decide to use him, or possibly to the past, or way into the future. But he decides that that's way too much effort to actually do after teleporting Kragoff to all these places. And so he just teleports him out of his house. And he lands outside right in front of the Fantastic Four. And Reed's got some sort of a device that he's made from the scientific things he was playing with earlier. And it's a paralysis ray. So he zaps Kragoff with him and paralyzes him. And then...
Like a true good guy.
Yes. Because Reed is a dick. And so the Watcher congratulates the Fantastic Four for winning the battle, and he says that Reed can go poke around in his house because he's leaving and taking all his stuff to go further away. Because now that humans have proven to be capable of space travel, he can't stay somewhere close to the moon without being detected. And while they're talking, a big furry arm reaches around the side of the rock, and the gorilla grabs the paralyzed Ray and zaps the red ghost with it, freeing him. And so Krigoff starts trying to give orders to the apes to go after the Fantastic Four some more. But the apes are through with his shit and start chasing him off. And so the Fantastic Four just leave and get back on their rocket ship and go to fly home.
So Krigoff got chased off?
Yes.
He must be pissed off. I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
Although I like it. I like intelligent monkey stories. They're great. And it was nice to have the Watcher. You know, he's good. But what the hell was this?
Thank you.
Hell,
Thank you so much. We're technically in the round though. Bill's actually in the right here more than us because it's actually a 3.16 star rating on average somehow.
Well, because the story is shallow and stupid and Cold War propaganda.
Yes.
But it's actually really fun, and the summary loses a lot of the charm that's in the actual writing of the story. Because there's a lot of stuff that I skimmed over in the interest of time that's quite entertaining. Like all the scenes of Krigoff training the monkeys is fun. And
this was a very topical issue too, because Kennedy had already made his speech, I think, about a year earlier about trying to get to the moon first. Right. And the Americans were very conscious of the fact that the Russians were also working on a space program. Right. So this is a topical issue. This was in the news a lot. It was talked about a lot. You know, the space program was really, gathering steam. NASA was a thing by this point. So, this issue would have been, a lot of fun for people to read.
There must have been some development around this point or something too, because we've actually had a little bit of a break from the commies recently, so...
Well, this is when the space race was really kicking up, so all of a sudden the commies were a bigger deal.
Yeah, I think the Russians already had it. I don't remember. Hold on. I need to find out when Sputnik
They definitely already had
space.
a man in space by this point.
Did they?
I'm 99% sure. I think it was even referenced in the comic.
More than likely. I suppose Sputnik was launched in 1957. What am I thinking? Yeah, John Glenn, I don't think had orbited the planet yet, but I believe the Russians had already gotten a number of different things into space. The Americans were lagging behind at this point.
Yeah, Yuri Gagarin had been in space on April 12th, 1961.
That's what I was...
There you go. And just a little bit of an aside here. Yuri Gagarin actually came to the States on a publicity tour, got to meet the president, all that stuff. Like this was a big, big, big deal that, someone had put a man in space, and the humiliation that America felt at the fact that it wasn't them, that it was the Russians, was just, you can't understate what a blow this was to American prestige.
Yes, and that is very much on their mind in this, because there are 4 or 5 barely in character speeches from various characters about the evils of communism and how they will never win against the free peoples and stuff.
Yeah,
that was the big knock against this book.
I think it was too much propaganda for me. Like you're going
because it would be flying along and really fun, really fast, really easy reading. And all of a sudden, Reed is staring directly out of the panel at me, giving me a lecture about the evils of communism.
Yeah,
that took me out of it.
Yeah, because like I say, the fact that the Russians had won the space race was an incredibly humiliating thing on the world stage for the U.S. And they'd sworn they were going to get a man to the moon first.
Yeah, right? and this is very, very much reflective of that.
Yes. Yeah, and so like I say, there's a lot of wish fulfillment going on here
Yeah.
as far as American propaganda goes.
Yeah. For me, it was a 3-star comic. I mean, the villain was interesting. The Red Ghost had good powers because he could go intangible, so they couldn't touch him a lot, which was giving them fits until Reed came up with the Deus Ex Machina of early Silver Age comics and just made a paralysis ray.
Yeah.
The apes, other than the magnetic ape, the apes were fairly decent. They were fairly decent parallels to Fantastic Four themselves, because the gorilla was like a thing analog and being very strong. And then you had the orangutan that could change its shape just like Reed can, although it would actually change form into something different. And then the Red Ghost was like a more powerful version of Sue. And then they had magnets because I guess at this point X-Men would have been in development, so they didn't want to shit all over Iceman by just making an Iceman to go against Human Torch.
Stan really wants a magnetic character at this point.
Yes.
We already read the Metal Master story too.
Yeah. But like the villains were interesting. I liked the debut of the Watcher. There was good art in this. The setting was unique. And the only real negative was the periodic breaks into blatant propaganda.
Yeah, I don't disagree with Bill at all on this one because it was at least different. And if we were talking about this, like 60 years ago, this would have been very topical. This would have been really, really interesting.
If I was reading this 60 years ago, I'd probably give it like 4 or 5 stars, realistically.
Yeah, the propaganda aged poorly, and that was the big thing that struck it down for me.
You gave it 3 stars. I really did not enjoy this. I gave this 1 star personally. Realistically, it's probably more of a 2, but this is going off my original rating, and I gave it a 1. I did not enjoy how propaganda filled it was. It took me out of the story. I didn't find I had a lot of fun reading this. Uatu was cool to see, but even he's not really. He would become a better character. He's kind of just here in this one. Then we have the Super Apes, cool, but Krigoff sucks. And then we have some shitty art in this one. Besides the moment where Reed's stuffed into the beaker, but there's some
I
really
thought
shitty.
some of the panels were really great, like the views of the ruined city.
There's the
big
one
splash
panel
panels they did.
That was really good, but there was the one panel that comes to mind where Reed was all stretched out that looked awful. And then my favorite, honestly,
as we've covered, Ditko should not do Reed.
My favorite part of the issue is just the first. I just like the beginning more than anything. Just the stretch to get to space was more fun than any of the stuff that happened in space, in my opinion. Like that, the highlight of the issue was Lily Reed getting stuffed into that beaker for me. I mean, the Super Apes
that was for me too. I loved that.
Yeah, I guess going into talking about the characters a little bit, we have the Watcher, of course, first appeared here. We'll next see him in Fantastic Four number 20. That was the last issue that I've actually just read. We have Igor and his Super Ape, the Red Ghost and the Super Apes. Excuse me, Igor is one of the Super Apes' name. We have Igor, Miklo, and Piotr.
None of the apes were actually named in this issue.
Yeah, they don't even mention that they weren't named here, but they're not named here. But they all appear again in Fantastic Four 29.
And apparently keep turning up because it's fairly modern art on them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember the last time they've appeared in modern. I don't think they've appeared in any modern comics I've read, but I think they appeared before Marvel Now at least, so they're definitely not.
Yeah, that looks like early 2000s style art.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they weren't monkeying around.
Anyways, moving on to Tales to Astonish, issue number 42.
Come on! God, you guys are so boring.
Oh my God, you're really hitting us with some. You're really hitting them with us with
my
them
best stuff today. Okay.
This is your best? Good God.
Read the synopsis. Get going.
So we have Tales to Astonish issue number 42, The Voice of Doom, and no, not Doctor Doom, or else the story would be a lot better. We have Stan and Larry are writing this one, as we have Don Heck on art, underappreciated. Don Heck's actually pretty good. We got Jack Kirby and Dick Geyers on the cover, and Artie Simic on letters. The cover is pretty cool, just to point that out. It would trick some people into reading this one. Release date's in January 1963, and this is only a 13-page story, thankfully.
It felt as long as that Fantastic Four. It really did. When I was reading it, I kept checking, like, how many pages do I have left? And that's never a good sign.
That's a bad sign. It really is.
Yeah, so, as everybody can tell, we have a good one coming up. It's not at all the worst Ant-Man story we've covered. It's definitely not. It's not a good story either, but it's all right. It's not terrible. But we open up the first page. We have a little instruction here. It's like, he called it the voice of truth, but to Ant-Man, it turned out to be the grammar here is horrible. It turned out to be the voice of doom. So we open up with little Ant-Man here standing on the dock as we see this guy in a top hat and a fancy dress wears
Lincoln.
He's commanding Ant-Man to go to the edge of the pier and fall into the water and fucking drown. So, and we see also the crowd of people around is calling Ant-Man a menace and stuff and tell him it's time for the horrid little film to perish. So, we move on to get some backstories as to what the fuck's happening here. And we meet the guy who becomes called the Voice. He becomes called the Voice later on here. And we're introduced to the guy behind it, and he's named Jason Craig, who seems like a harmless oddball, so they say. But he... No one would ever dream that he is the most dangerous mortal on Earth. So this guy, Jason Craig's the most dangerous mortal on Earth, keep in mind.
Wow. There's going to be some really pissed off supervillains. Seriously.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that, some much more respectable supervillains like the Wizard already exist.
Pacepot Pete is probably pretty pissed off right now.
Pacepot Pete is arfifisting right now. No, but somebody says it looks like something left over from the Civil War. That's a pretty funny comment. He's setting up a soapbox, so he's gonna make a speech, and we see him. We see him using his voice to gather people. I guess we're not fully getting backstory yet, as we see he already has the voice here, but
you just got thrown because the first page was a splash page and was outside of the progress of the story.
He's like, I'm here to speak the truth, and he's gonna brainwash some people like they're Republicans. So he
7 years ago.
he tells them their words and that Ant-Man is a sinister villain. So the crowd just turns on Ant-Man and believes him because of the power of his voice. So then now we get our backstory as to how we got here, as we see Jason Craig, who we learn is originally from the Midwest, and he became a radio announcer, but he just didn't have what it takes. So we see him doing a commercial for dog food and blah blah blah, and he's getting told from his boss that he's fired. He's fired, but Jason Craig's like, no, I'm not fired, I'm quitting. But before that, we see that there was like some radioactivity that happened, and some radioactive rays hit his golden little microphone here, and this ties into how he gets his powers, because that happened, he has this magical voice to where he can sell people on anything. So he's pretty much the world's greatest salesman now. And he became bolder and started using his voice for stuff. He got better jobs and stuff, and he commanded people to do stuff. Blah blah blah. And then he learned how much he could just command people around. We go back to current time where he sees Ant-Man taking down some thieves, and he's like, well, that guy seems like he's gonna get in the way. I need to get rid of him. So since Craig's becoming more of a villain with learning how his powers are working. So we see him go into the police headquarters, where he insists that Ant-Man should be arrested. So the cops just, yeah, they're like, yeah, Ant-Man does need to be arrested. So they try to arrest Ant-Man, but he jumps between the fingers of cops and stuff and manages to escape by landing. What's he land? He lands on his pile of ants. There we go. Um, he loses himself in the crowd.
There is a great panel there of him making a daring leap onto what's presented like the old westerns where someone leaps onto a train that's driving by to get away, and then the camera pans out, and it's a little kid's roller skate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just happened to be lying around.
No, the kid's wearing it and skating,
Oh,
and
okay.
he jumps onto the roller skate to get away.
Yeah, they're in motion, brother. so, so people's free wills are overcome by Jason Craig's spellbinding commands. We see that everybody has started searching for Ant-Man that he has spoken to, because Ant-Man is now a menace in everybody's eyes, because Jason Craig says so. So we see Ant-Man trying to get back to his lab and alert himself to become Henry Pym again. He's like, I better go through the park, it's quicker. He's like, turns out that wasn't the best idea, as he comes across a group of people searching the park. And they have hooks and stuff, and they have little magnets attached to sticks and stuff, so they will pick him up by his helmet. So Ant-Man's like, well, shit, I guess I better take my helmet off then. So he takes his helmet off and starts crawling through the grass, but since he doesn't have his helmet on, Jason Craig's like, I have an idea. What? And he starts talking and directing at Ant-Man. And since Ant-Man doesn't have his mask on his head, Jason Craig's voice starts affecting him. So Ant-Man ends up submitting himself to Jason Craig because of his voice commands. And so this is where we go back to the beginning. We see Craig commanding Ant-Man to jump off the pier and drown. So he does just that, and then we never saw Ant-Man again. The end. No, I'm just kidding.
Yay! I mean, oh, darn.
as if it could be that easy. But yeah, Henry's drowning, and then we see, well, thank God, the ants have come to rescue him. So the ants do just that. They go into the water. They pull him out of the water. So
Yeah, the ants are known for their Olympic level swimming.
yeah. So Ant-Man's now broken from the command, I guess, because why not? And he fights his way through a secret passage.
Because he got wet, and that breaks hypnotism once you stop being wet.
That's
I think
true.
that's the logic, because otherwise he would have snapped out of it the instant he was in the water.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is the cover lied to us. It shows Ant-Man falling off the pier, but he's wearing his helmet.
Yeah,
He
but he's
wasn't
still not
wearing
wearing
his
his helmet, no.
Oh my God, that's
Which
fat Lincoln is kind of making him fall in.
There is a huge pothole here that Henry should still be hypnotized here, but he's not. But he goes through secret passageway and he makes it back to his lab, and he does finally enlarge. So then we see some time pass, blah blah. There's a newscaster being like, "Oh, somebody must be hiding Ant-Man in the city. We haven't been able to find him in days." So
He's the size of a fucking ant. What do you expect?
So Henry's watching this news report, and he's like, it's time to make my move, and he decides to shrink down and become Ant-Man again. But he thankfully he has his helmet now, so he either has a backup or he found it in days that we've skipped through. So he uses an ant, and he goes to where Jason Craig is at a broadcast, but he sets up this whole trap for him. So Jason Craig's on the broadcast to further his message, blah blah. But Ant-Man jumps down to stand in in the lip of his ear so he can talk right to him. And Ant-Man's like, unless you do exactly as I tell you, your life won't be worth a dime. He's like, at this very moment, there's a concealed gun trained on you. Again, very much like a good guy would do here.
Yeah.
So one signal from me and my ants will pull the trigger.
The ants have a giant contraption rigged up so they can hold the gun up and pull the trigger by ropes.
Wow.
Yeah. And so Craig, so Ant-Man's like, unless you're bulletproof, you better tell a million listeners that you were wrong, that Ant-Man is an honest, law-abiding citizen. So yes, with the threat of his life on the line, Jason Craig does actually tell the audience that Ant-Man is actually a good guy after all. And then Craig points out the fact, like, well, what if I just go and reverse my decision afterwards and say you're a bad guy again? So Ant-Man's like, fuck you, buddy. And takes his voice away.
Yeah, he'd covered the microphone with the bacteria that cause bronchitis that he had stolen from a drugstore, and he just knew laryngitis, not bronchitis, and he just knew the exact instant when it would kick in and threatened him into clearing Ant-Man's
before
name,
it kicked in.
Right before the laryngitis kicked in, but close enough that he couldn't rescind it before he lost his voice.
And this is why Ant-Man is the smartest.
Can I be the first to say this was horrible?
Yeah, so essentially that's essentially the end. We don't really have anything else to say that really of importance. So yeah, we'll just call it.
Except when his voice comes back after the laryngitis clears, he no longer has the weird magical power.
Yeah. So yeah, I know it's probably weird that I gave this one 2 stars and the last one 1, but that's where we're at. I gave this one 2 stars.
I also gave this one 2 stars.
Which is really in line with the average, which is a 2.27, so we're really on average here. 2 stars covers it. It's not like that offensive of a read or anything, but it is definitely not that good. It could have been something, the power with the Force, I guess, but it kind of just doesn't work. Great news, the Force does return in West Coast Avengers number 36, so...
The even better news, it's not until at least 1985, so you don't have to think about it for a very, very long time.
The late 80s, when they brought back a lot of inconsequential villains.
Was Roy Thomas writing then?
That would explain a lot, yeah. I mean, there's not really much to say about this one, is there?
I think Stan was trying to say something deep about media and people's willingness to believe it. But I also think he failed at saying that thing.
It's a pretty easy concept that Stan managed to mess up.
Yeah.
I think you're right. There was, they'd already been through McCarthyism and things like that. And there were still sort of your snake oil salesmen in politics, or always will be, to be fair, who would try and move people with, these ridiculous bullshit, ideas and concepts, and just use their own personal charisma to get what they wanted.
Yeah, and this was right around the time of the Nixon-Kennedy debate, where Nixon was pretty conclusively considered to be the winner from the people who listened on the radio, and then he just got absolutely destroyed in the view of the people that watched it on TV, because
that's hilarious.
Kennedy looked better, and Nixon was all sweaty and gross looking, so people were like, oh no, he loses, look at him, he looks like a toad.
Yeah, no, and that's actually absolutely true. Nixon's personal charisma did not translate well on a visual level, whereas Kennedy's did, right? I mean, Roosevelt himself was the first to say, or not Roosevelt, sorry, I don't remember actually who said it, but somebody said, America would never elect a man in a wheelchair, which Roosevelt was. And, if you look at historical films and pictures going back to the 40s, you'll always see Roosevelt standing, but he's usually being, held up by a soldier or someone. There's a very famous film clip from the Quebec Conference where Roosevelt and Churchill met on an American Navy ship, and Roosevelt's leaning against the deck wall, and he's holding the arm of one of the Navy captains, right? Because Roosevelt couldn't stand. He had polio as a young man and was, confined to a wheelchair his whole life. So anytime you saw Roosevelt standing, it wasn't real in the sense that, although he was actually standing, he was being held up by someone or by some sort of physical object to help him stand, because they didn't want people to see him in a wheelchair because they felt it would hurt his popularity beyond repair. Right. So, the visual media, including comic books, did have a very strong impact on, anyone and everyone out there. And that's my little addition to this whole thing. Sorry.
All right, I'm back in.
Well, hello. Moira's online. Like, I'm online. It never cut out for me.
Are you on, what internet are you on?
I have no idea. I'm using the neighbor's internet.
Yeah, okay. Because you might be using a different internet company than we are.
Could be. I have no idea.
Because I'm on Eastlink and it's...
Okay, we could be on Bell for I don't know one way or the other.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's Bell.
That's probably what it is, because it's not just this site, it's been everything that's been blinking out.
Okay.
And it'll just go out for like...
Oh, what? Okay.
Oh, you're back.
Hey!
Well, hey guys, we're back. This is gonna be one of the weird cuts that might happen, assuming this episode can fully be put together. We're having internet issues right now, so we're just gonna let Dan go back into his talk about what was happening politically at the time.
Yeah, because we did get cut off, and we're just trying to reset here. But really, I was just talking about public perceptions and the concept of people not voting for someone in a wheelchair, which Roosevelt was confined to a wheelchair, but they, most often as they could, they did their best to hide that from everyone. Because Roosevelt was incapable of standing, and yet you see many, many times during the Second World War, you see him either sitting in a jeep or sitting in chairs between Stalin and Churchill. But you do also see him standing, and usually when you did, he was being helped to stand by soldiers or other people because they just wanted the perception that he was not crippled. But Roosevelt had been crippled by polio. And the point behind that whole little lecture was basically to say that visual media, even back then, people understood the impact of visual media. Nixon suffered the throes of visual media because he was not as attractive physically as Kennedy. And when you're reading a comic book, that is pure 100% visual media. Right? The whole concept of a comic book itself was just a brilliant idea. And it sort of closes all off so we can keep on going. No matter what happens, even in today's day and age, where you have politicians, not mentioning any names, especially not Trump's, who, has the fake hair and paints his face orange to try and hide the fact that he's, very pasty white by nature, right? People are very conscious of visual media. You see it on TikTok, on, all these other, apps. So, comics were just one aspect of many things. And from there, we are going to start with Tales of Suspense, my part of this, number 40, with America's newest superhero sensation, Iron Man. Okay, Iron Man.
Written by Stan Lee and Robert Bernstein, art by Jack Kirby, ink by Don Heck, colored by Stan Goldberg, and lettered by Artie Simic. Jack Kirby and Don Heck did the cover.
January 1963 release, 13 pages, and it's Iron Man versus Gargantus for the story title.
Dun, dun, dun. And synopsis. Okay, I'm going straight off the Marvel database on this. The synopsis for Iron Man versus Gargantus. Okay, Anthony Stark, also known as Tony Stark to those of us who watch comics nowadays, travels the world collecting awards for his scientific achievements, impressing military brass with his new inventions, and wowing the ladies with his wealth and good looks. You go, Iron Man.
I need to point out, before you go any further, Dan, because your synopsis doesn't include this, but the new invention he is wowing the military with is fucking transistor-powered roller skates that he has an entire platoon of soldiers wearing and whizzing around the parade ground. In formation.
Wow. That's... Whew.
Stan really wanted the roller skates to be a thing for a while in Iron Man.
So it would seem, However, someday soon, we will get to comic stories that were written by somebody with a brain larger than a grape. But for now,
Damn.
Sorry. However, Tony Stark, has to constantly remove himself from social situations in order to privately recharge his iron chest plate, which keeps his shrapnel lodged in his chest away from his heart. While taking Marion, one of his girlfriends, on a date to the circus, several big cats break loose and start terrorizing the crowd. Oh no! Tony steals away into a private corner and changes into his Iron Man armor, which he had in his fanny pack?
In his briefcase. It's collapsible, don't you know?
Oh, of course. What was I thinking? Okay, Iron Man's hulking gray armored figure saunters into the big top arena, corrals the cats into a group, and shocks them into submission. Wow. Anyway, Iron Man quickly changes back into Tony Stark, which makes no sense at all. Can we say Iron Man takes off his super suit instead?
No.
But I want to. You ruined everything. And returns to Marion, who tells him that Iron Man would be much less terrifying looking if he didn't wear such dull gray armor. She suggests he would look more like a knight in shining armor if he wore gold armor. This
Because
inspires...
knights notoriously didn't wear dull gray armor.
Oh, no, they all wore gold, didn't you know? You see it in the movies all the time. This inspires Tony to change the color of Iron Man's armor from gray to shiny gold. While Marion leaves on a short trip to Granville, Tony takes the opportunity to change the color of his armor. The following Saturday night, when he goes to pick up Marion at the airport, he discovers that she's not on the airplane when it arrives. He is so informed that the whole city of Granville is shut down, locked up tight, and no one knows why. We have reached the dilemma part of the comic. As Iron Man's
9 pages in or whatever.
Yeah, like we
9
joked
pages
when
in.
we were making it in. We're 8 pages in, time to get to the plot.
Finally, as Iron Man, Stark heads to Granville and learns that a wall has been built around the entire city limits, and his armed guards posted on top. Inside, Scarlet Witch is going stark raving. Oh, sorry, wrong story. The local National Guard cannot bust in because the town has the legal right to put up a wall. Oh, my dear God.
I'm pretty sure that's not true because they're not trying to keep brown people out of their city.
Oh. Wow. Where did
Wow,
that
you really
come
went
from?
there.
I was reading a thing about Trump's wall earlier today.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, Trump obviously was not involved in all of this. Anyway, Iron Man decides to take matters into his own hands and tunnels underneath the wall. Doesn't he have like rocket-powered feet he couldn't just scoot up over?
I actually don't know if this suit can fly. I don't remember seeing it fly.
Okay, fair enough. That's fair. Inside the wall, he addresses some townspeople and warns them they cannot speak to him for fear of disobeying Gargantus. In fact, the people are in such fear that they throw cans and bottles at Iron Man to shoo him away from the city. Please don't save us, please don't save us. That's really dumb. Iron Man leaves the scene, and when he turns the corner, he sees townspeople erecting a massive statue of what appears to be a large Neanderthal man. They are bowing to him in prayer. The crowd sees Iron Man and begins chasing him away again. Believing he needs to shock them from the spell they must be under, Iron Man pushes a 10-ton truck into the statue, busting it into pieces. Yet the people continue to worship the rubble. This is really more topical than I think we want to talk about. So we're just going to avoid the obvious parallels. Iron Man flies away from the marauding townspeople and lands on the top of a tall building. See, he can fly. He flies right there.
You're right. I completely forgot that happened.
It's his power set at this point. Well, not even power set. His abilities are very inconsistent at this point.
Yeah. You're right. Why did he tunnel under the wall if he could fly?
It's more just a curiosity than anything. I mean, it was
and it's not intended to be a jump because it literally has a whoosh sound effect when he's taking off.
There you go. There you go. It just struck me as odd he would tunnel.
I legitimately forgot that he flew in this.
Apparently so did he.
Yes.
So you're not alone. Anyway, Iron Man plays a challenge to Gargantus through the public address speakers in his belt. Within seconds, the giant Neanderthal appears wielding a club. He stares down Iron Man with brightly glowing eyes that look as if they were mirrors reflecting the sun. Strangely, Iron Man noticed there's a thick dark cloud hovering nearby in the sky. He grabs a flag, holds it up in the air, watching it ripple in the breeze. Iron Man thinks to himself he's finally solved the mystery of Gargantus, and instead of facing him directly in combat, lures him down to street level. In the street, Iron Man spots his girlfriend Marion while moving towards the city square with Gargantua in hot pursuit. Now, with plenty of room to move, because there's no room to move in the sky, Iron Man launches 3 transistor-powered magnets which surround Gargantus and begin to use their extraordinary power to pull him completely apart.
I will say, during the part where Gargantus is chasing Iron Man into the park, he becomes the real hero of the story because he's smashing a random Confederate statue with his club.
Yay! Goddamn right. You go, Gargantus. Gargantus disintegrates into a pile of gears, tubes, and motors. Tubes. Wow. Revealing he was a robot. Iron Man shines a searchlight from his chest plate skyward, penetrating the dark cloud, revealing a hovering flying saucer. A citizen of Granville, now free from his hypnotic state, tells Iron Man that he remembers a flying saucer appearing over the city, and then Gargantus dropped from the saucer and began hypnotizing everyone. Iron Man reveals he suspected things were not as they seemed when the monster's eyes appeared to be reflecting the sunlight, when there was no sun to reflect, because this all happened at night. That's right. Furthermore, a dark cloud overhead remained in place despite the blowing wind, which would have blown any normal cloud out of the way. Iron Man hurtles his magnets towards the flying saucer, because they're all powered magnets, which retreats into space, because they're afraid of magnets. Hey,
Magnets are the most powerful thing in the Marvel Universe at this point.
So it would seem. The alien occupants are upset that the planet Earth has changed since their ancestors explored it 80,000 years ago, because they use our time. Anyway, when it was inhabited by Neanderthal people like Gargantus, they planned their plan to dominate the Neanderthal man with a super Neanderthal has been foiled. I'm assuming that's kind of an inside joke. Back in New York, Tony Stark greets Marion at the airport and acts oblivious to the excitement that occurred in Granville. And that's the end of the story. Ugh. What a waste. Just
Some good stuff happened in this comic. None of it had anything to do with Gargantus.
the one really kind of cool thing is the fact that these saucer men, the aliens, did visit the planet 80,000 years ago, saw Neanderthals, and went away and came back and decided to use a Neanderthal to try and dominate without stopping to think about evolution and anything like that. And that's kind of a cute idea. That kind of works. It makes sense in a way. So that's okay. But
the part
really,
I liked, the part I liked was the part about people being scared of the old Iron Man design, so he paints it and updates it. That section's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I really enjoy this issue till we actually have to have a villain.
Have a story. Yeah.
Yeah, the part where they're like, this is a comic, we need him to fight a villain, so I know, let's just do a Neanderthal robot. That part sucked, but the first half of this comic is actually pretty good, so I averaged it out to a 2.
I gave it a 3. I really enjoyed it when I read. I'm definitely over the average here.
No, I give it a 3 too. I would.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I would, because... Sorry, I'm going to rant for a second. The one thing so far that I like about Iron Man is it's not the bloody soap opera that is Spider-Man. You know, Iron Man isn't wandering around whining because nobody likes him and he has no fans. Oh, and I really like this girl, but does she like me?
Just wait a few issues.
Oh, God, no, please no. But no, I do like the fact that they're not wasting as much time. Only 9 pages to really just, Iron Man's a superhero. He does superhero things. Bada bing, bada boom. Right? They're not killing you with personal details about his bunions or, all that crap. I don't think it was that bad a story. There was some good solid signs in it in certain ways.
I,
Yeah, one of my big complaints about the story didn't come up in the synopsis,
Okay.
but since they were trying to establish kind of Tony's new normal now that
Sure.
he's Iron Man, they'd hint at other Iron Man stories that had just happened, like he'd mentioned going to Africa for something and so.
Yeah.
And it would just be like one panel that was a throwaway image of these things, like in one part he's busting up some super scientists in a lab and stuff.
Yeah.
And all those stories sounded way better than Gargantus. And so I'm like, I want to read those.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I liked, and I said this, I think, the last time. I really, really liked Iron Man's origins. I liked the way they came up with that, the way it worked. It was great. In this one, there's not a lot of whining and moaning because Iron Man isn't hiding his identity per se. You know, it's not as there's not as much melodrama.
just wait.
Oh, I have no doubt it's coming. I'm ready to deal with it when it comes. But right now, I'm totally content with this. You know, I mean,
I gave this 3, and I said that I enjoyed everything up to Gargantus, and even Gargantus wasn't that awful compared to some
he
other
wasn't
fans.
offensive. There just could have been better things they could have done.
I mean, it was great to see Tony deal with the Lion for a second. I think part of the reason I liked it so much too is some Iron Man bias and this coming after me not enjoying the Super Apes story and the shitty, disappointing Ant-Man. I think this looked better too.
Yeah, I do feel kind of bad being forced by a 5-star rating system into rating this the same as the Ant-Man story.
Yeah.
Because this was definitely better, way better than the Ant-Man story.
Yes.
But it's the matter of a low 2 to a high 2.
Okay, fair enough. I find myself sort of begrudgingly admitting I like this, this Iron Man run so far because I'm not a fan of Iron Man. I've never particularly liked it.
We haven't hit the rough stretch yet.
Yeah, but as superheroes go, he's not even in my top 10, right? Iron Man never really appealed to me at all. And so I'm surprising myself that I'm sitting here, going over this, going, hey, you know what, this really isn't that bad. Compared to some of the other ones, it's pretty good. Right? It's... Anyway, but that's all I have to say about that. I didn't think it was that bad.
All right. I think this is, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really anything else to say about that. Apparently Jean appears again. One of the women in this comic. That's cool. Besides that, we're gonna move on. Journey into Mystery number 92.
I'll take it.
Okay.
Yeah, Journey into Mystery number 92. Art by Jack Kirby. So I guess that's a cover art. Art by Jack Kirby, Dick Ayers, Stan Goldberg, and Artie Simic. Wow, they were busy, and the cover is horrible. Oh my God.
Yeah, covers.
And this is just pathetic.
The cover is Kirby and
the internal
Ayers.
art is Joe Sino, so that's better.
Okay, yeah. So writer Stan Lee, Robert Bernstein, penciler Joe Sino, inker Joe Sino, colorist Stan Goldberg, letterer Martin Epp, and the editor Stan Lee. And this story is called The Day Loki Stole Thor's Magic Hammer.
We're jumping ahead in time a little bit with this one, as this is a March 1963 release, and thankfully this is another 13-page story.
Ooh, just what we wanted. Okay, well, the synopsis for this is pretty short and sweet. So we're going to sort of dive right into it. And it starts, Neri, the handmaid of Frigga, Queen of Asgard, Frigga, passes Heimdall, the guardian of the Rainbow Bridge that connects Asgard with Midgard, which is Earth. As he challenges her to identify himself, he remarks that she might be Loki trying to sneak past him. From nearby, Loki watches, chained to a tree by Odin, and snarls that he will yet get vengeance on Thor. On Earth, as nurse Jane Foster leaves Dr. Blake's office for an errand, she passes a wounded jewel thief and his two partners. They enter Blake's office and demand treatment. Distracting them, Blake taps his cane and transforms into Thor. Strapping the criminals to an operating table with surgical tape, he attaches it to his magic hammer and throws the criminals to the police station. Okay.
He even swings it around his head before he throws it.
What? He returns to the form of Blake just as Jane returns to the office.
I should clarify, he did operate on the guy that was dying before he flung him attached to a hammer clear across the city.
Let's hope his stitches didn't rip when he landed in the police station through the hopefully open door. 1 week later...
I really hope the door's open because the police station is drawn as if it's made out of cinder blocks.
Oh, that would suck. You see these 3 pizzas stuck to your wall? They're bad guys. Could you jail them up? 1 week later, Thor is helping with the filming of a Viking movie. He pretends to defeat a sea serpent while conjuring up a thunderstorm. Loki, watching from Asgard, uses his magic to magnetically attract Thor's flying hammer to his Uru chains, breaking them and setting him free. Well, why didn't he do that before? Oh, dear Lord. Thor turns to Odin for help in finding his hammer. I was my widow hammer, Daddy. Transported to Asgard, Thor sets off in search of his hammer. When Loki uses his magic to attack Thor with giant trees, Thor makes a wooden hammer and fights them back. Next, Loki sends a dragon against Thor. The god of thunder uses his finger to etch an imitation of his hammer from a nearby stone and drives back the dragon. Realizing that the stone from which he made his imitation hammer is Uru, the same magical metal used to forge the original, Thor throws the hammer. He hopes the same magnetic forces which drew his real hammer will also draw the imitation. He follows the flying hammer to his own magic hammer, laying in the fragments of Loki's chains. Informed by Thor of Loki's escape, Loki is quickly recaptured by Odin, Heimdall, and Frigga. Back on Earth, Dr. Blake prepares to use a rubber hammer on a patient's knee. As Jane assures the patient Dr. Blake is skilled with using a mallet, Blake thinks to himself that she does not know the half of it. Well, okay.
So first of all, at this point, he really is Thor, god of hammers.
Yes. That's about all he is. And apparently there's Uru lying around everywhere, so we could all have a Thor hammer.
If we went to Asgard.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But, then Loki could make an Uru hammer. All the bad guys could in Asgard, and then Thor wouldn't be very unique anymore. That would really suck. Poor Thor. Next thing you know, some girl's going to steal his hammer.
Damn it, you stole my fucking joke.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just about to go into it.
Yeah. Well, is skipping right over Thor Love and Blunders. This is a pretty throwaway story, pardon the pun.
Yeah.
There's
it was
really,
fine.
Yeah, it's a story that exists.
Yeah, I don't really know why I gave this 3 stars, but I liked it enough.
I know why I gave it 3 stars.
It's not offensive.
It wasn't offensive, and it rolled along quickly and was entertaining, especially coming after that drought of the last 2. This one was a lot more fun than either of those.
I was going to say, this one had the fun factor. I think that's what pushed it over the edge.
Well, it does not just... He's not fighting, like commies or aliens. So that's good. He's dealing with his primary archenemy, and that's nice. I'm okay with that. I like the fact that they're beginning to pay more attention to his hammer and its properties and its abilities and, how it defines him. Because that is something that I think continues as a theme throughout Thor's runs, is how the hammer defines Thor more than Thor defines the hammer. Right.
Yeah.
he's unfortunately very much a two-dimensional character, so the hammer really adds that third dimension to him. That's all I got, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, no, there's not a lot to say about this. If this story never happened, no one would care.
I don't know if it's an error with the site, but they call the character spelled like Fricka instead of Frigga or whatever. So, but she next appears in Thor 274.
I think it was possible. I think it was spelt.
It might have been spelt that way for a while.
Comic.
And then I think she gets switched to Frigga.
I think it was spelled that way in the comic, and then they changed it to the correct spelling in the future. Because the site tends to try to list it as their name. Yeah, because her next appearance, it's written properly. But that's 15, 20 years later. 15 years later. And so they figured out how they're supposed to spell her name.
There's a little more education in these times. So, yeah. I mean, yeah, not much to say, so I guess we'll go right into Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos, issue number 1. And as we talked about at the end of the last episode, this is for the Marvel Comics reading order site we're using. This is technically not in the main 616 order, but this is definitely technically a 616 comics. It's comic. It's just separated because it's a war comics and there's a war order. But this definitely is six. This definitely relates to 616 continuity.
The reason why the World War II comics got their own continuity. Because when they originally started the order, Travis, the guy who makes it, figured that people that were mostly there to read superhero comics wouldn't want to slog through a whole bunch of war comics, so he just cut them out and stuck them in their own order because of that.
Fair enough. I mean, there's probably a chance we might.
The criteria that they use nowadays, this wouldn't have happened, but it was mostly a side effect of the order being not really finalized when this decision was made, and now it would just be too much of a pain in the nuts to change it around.
It'll kind of be interesting to see if there's any other titles that we kind of have to fix into the order, but I don't know if there is, so hopefully this is really the main one. I think the next thing
that would do it would be the Earth 2 or whatever it is, New Universe.
Oh yeah, because of the Squadron Supreme.
Yeah, there's New Universe and then 2099 and 2099 Max and Ultimate Universes are the other ones I can think of that would probably be pulled into a complete reading, like a reading order of the style we're doing.
Yeah. But those won't be for a long time.
No, stuff like the Western stuff, it doesn't really matter. Like, we don't need to read 50 samey Western kid stories just because he turns up in a Ghost Rider in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess we explained that, so we're good there. The story they have here is called Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos. That is not what it's called. It's actually called 7 Against the Nazis, but maybe they didn't want to put Nazis in the title on here.
No, they don't have a problem with that. It is what it's called. It's called 7 Against the Nazis on the cover. But inside the actual book, it's called Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos.
Oh my god, what the fuck did they do there?
They do that a lot. They have a different version of the title on the cover, because whoever was told to draw the cover got like an old version, and then they changed the name of the story and didn't tell them so.
I've been thinking of this story as 7 against the Nazis. I think it's because Nick says how it's 7 of them against the Nazis later in the issue, but yeah, that's weird. But
that'll happen a bunch that you'll see a different version of the title on the cover.
This is a Stan Lee and Jack Kirby comic, because as they present that this series is done in the style of the Fantastic Four. So never bit kind of little tease that it could be tied together. We have Dick Ayers on inks, Ayers and Kirby do the cover here, Artie Simics on letters, and this is a March 1963 release. This is a 21-page story, and you'll probably feel it. And yeah, let us move forward.
Yeah, it was released 3 days after I was born.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we're going back to World War II here.
Sorry, 3 days after my first birthday. My mistake.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
We're going back to World War II, back when Dan was a teenager.
Ow.
Immediately after he said when he was born, so you just cell phoned yourself too, because this means you're bad at math and Dan's old.
Well,
yeah, that's right. I'm allowed to be old.
I had to go through with it. I already had it planned. Like, I had to see the joke through.
Oh no, it was great that you committed. It just let me own both of you.
Committed. You were not backing down on that one.
Well, I don't know why you fucking had to go and point out, but
ruin it.
Whatever.
Yeah, I know.
Well, so yeah, we open up with the acknowledgement that this story is actually called Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos, and then we get a nice double page here where we are introduced to all the characters. We have Sergeant Nick Fury, we have Robert Rubble Ralston on some nice alliteration there. We have Corporal
Reb's the token Southern guy.
Corporal Dum Dum Dugan, who is like the second in command here. We have Jonathan Junior Jumper. Oh my god, this alliteration is gonna kill me. Junior. Oh, I'm not.
He's the kid.
Oh, I just did something weird with my screen. Uh-oh. Okay, there we go. We have Gabriel Jones, who is our token black guy. I mean, he's our yeah, no, that's what he is. He's a token black guy. But he's
unless you have the original inking, in which case he's white in this panel because they colored him wrong.
Yeah, they did color him wrong originally, but he's
also colored wrong on the cover. But that's a little different because when he was colored right when they sent it to the printer, and the printer figured they fucked it up, so they changed him to a white guy.
He's actually the most important character after Dum Dum Dugan, at least in my eyes. So that's
I'd say so. He's one of the only ones that turns up regularly in the regular timeline.
So yeah, so he's so that's kind of cool. Probably under-acknowledged in terms of black characters in comics. We have Izzy Cohen, somebody with a fucking normal non-alliteration name, and here's another one, Dino Manelli.
Or Dean Martin, because he's fucking Dean Martin.
Yeah, that's definitely supposed to be Dean Martin.
Yeah, okay.
His story is Dean Martin, his design is Dean Martin, and his name is as close to Dean Martin as they could write without being obvious about it.
Yeah, because Martin was not Dean Martin's actual original middle or last name.
No. I think it actually was Manelli, and they just changed it to Dino.
I think it was Martini or something.
It was very close.
It was extremely close.
But yeah, he's Dean Martin. He's just Dean Martin.
Which Dino was really
Dino
popular.
Paul Crosetti.
Crosetti? There you go.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So
they kept the Dino and changed it to Manelli.
There we go.
But yeah, he's supposed to be Dean Martin.
That's what Dino was another character that's actually referenced quite a bit early on here. So that was probably a fun little inside joke there for a while.
Yeah, and at the time this comic was published, every single person reading it would know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Dean Martin was huge back then.
So we open up here with a guy clicking away in the communications center in the French underground, and that with a guy coming in and screaming at the guy Pierre and saying the Gestapo's behind him, before this guy that barges in is shot at but not killed, because these bullets aren't lethal. He's asked how you dare defy the master race. There we go. That's how you know they're Nazis. They talk to the guy who was communicating. They're like, "We know you were contacting the American Commandos, you fool. You're doomed." Blah blah blah. So we move forward, and on the next page we meet our commandos.
I will mention the information that they were transmitting is the plans for when to land for D-Day.
Yeah, that's pretty important.
Despite the fact
bullshit.
that in real life that was absolutely not something that would have been determined by the French underground, but nevertheless, that's the premise for this story.
Yeah, no, the French underground was not allowed to know when D-Day was going to happen.
No, so that exactly this scenario doesn't happen.
Yeah, they weren't told. They were told by coded message on the radio about 6 hours before the landings actually took place.
Yeah. And this is somewhere between months and years before that happened.
And so there will be a lot of historical inconsistencies with this title, so just bear with us.
Oh, of course. From what I understand, the issues aren't even necessarily in chronological order. They kind of just jump around in the wire where it would be cool to tell a story.
They seem to just jump around wherever they want to be in the war. I'm sure that every single time there's an inconsistency, we will have our specialist Dan jump in here. So,
I mean, what's the
well
point of
prepared.
living through it if you can't call attention to the problems?
That's true.
Back
That's
when
true.
Dan was a corporal.
Smart ass.
So, so we're introduced to, as they say, a snarling, sneering, two-legged thunderbolt, which turns out, of course, to be Nick Fury. And he's given some grief to a fellow soldier. We see the back of Duggan's head before we see him again in the next panel turned around. They're doing some training. Duggan's literally shooting bullets at his fellow soldiers, so that's cool as they're ducking down to dodge them and doing training. We also see an explosion in the distance, so they're really taking this shit seriously. But Nick comes up and he's like, "Okay, dum-dum, knock it off." So, stop shooting.
Don't be a dum-dum.
All the other commandos are seen getting up and they're all muddy. And then we see them all together in their aircraft as they prepare for a mission. And Dum Dum's like, "Spill the beans on whatever mission is," and blah blah. And Nick's like, he happens to know the time of D-Day, so we gotta save him. And the Nazis are trying to torture it out of him, so it could be the end of our invasion. And so he's like that. And there's a joke somewhere in there with mud and it being the same almost shade as Gabriel's skin color here, but I guess we're just gonna move on. We have, oh my god, that's terrible art. We have
Yeah, this is not Jack Kirby's best work.
the blonde character has
I
a
will
terribly
mention
drawn face
that
here.
the terrible thing about the joke about the mud being basically the same color as Gabe's skin is that the mud is like brown, and this is in the era of black people being colored gray. So
Yeah.
Gabe is Hulk colored, and the mud is not.
Yeah. It's it's gonna be nice when black people aren't a taboo.
Yeah, I'll be glad when they figure out what color they're supposed to be.
Yeah. So we see some Nazi aircraft come out and try to shoot down the commandos' airplane here, but they are unsuccessful. Well, I guess they're not fully unsuccessful. They get the commandos to flee from the aircraft, so that's kind of a win for them. But the commandos quickly get a win back and blow up the Nazi aircraft, so that's
By
great.
throwing hand grenades at them while
Yes.
they're parachuting.
As you do. You would pull a pin as you're parachuting down and lob that grenade. You got a better you're better at the three throw line than friggin' 3-point line is what I'm trying to say than Steph Curry. So,
I mean, I'll give them this. At least they were in the air. I read a Combat Casey where he throws a hand grenade from the fucking ground and takes down a Korean aircraft.
Oh, brilliant. Um, so we're at part two of the story now, where we get mention of Seven against the Nazis again, because it's somewhere around
Yeah,
here
this
that.
is where the title actually came from, this part.
Yeah, and Nick says something about seven of them against the Nazis at some point too, I think. So Nick's like, "All right, you jokers, we found us a town. Let's take it." Uh, so seven of them here are gonna take this town. Um, Nazis are like, one of the Nazis is like, "Hey, did you see that? There's some free French resistance fighters that blew up a Nazi tank." Um, then we have Nick's like, "Oh, look, they're planning to level the whole town because the underground dare to defy them." And we're like, "We'll see about that." So it's time for the seven against an army. And boy, do seven men sure know how to take on an army. We see one of the commandos throws a grenade right into a tank and blows it up. Um, we have. Wow, I forgot about that. They make a whole ass, huge ass Molotov out of this huge ass gin like container and fucking they fucking yeet it at a tank. So that's blowing up too. Another tank. We have Nazis trying to throw some I forget what that type of grenade's called, but it's the one where it's like the shaker one. They're throwing those while also shooting, but they're missing everything. And there's suddenly a door crashes on Commandos and we see it's some French resistance. They're here to help against the Nazis, and they make some escape to recuperate. But we see a Nazi general come out and tell them to get back so they can reform their troops. Um, one of the commandos goes back to the rest of the group and has a Nazi costume on. So it makes a joke like, "Oh, look at me! I got a promotion. I'm an officer. Pretty neat, huh?" So he was a bit undercover there for a moment, and Nick Fury's in a bit of rough shape. We see his clothes all in tatters and stuff. No
Well,
bullet
yeah,
holes or
he
anything.
soaked most of that grenade blast.
Yeah. So Dum Dum's kind of holding them up here, and trust me,
I
these
think
guys
it's
are
Dino
reselling it
that's
though.
wearing the Nazi costume.
It is.
Probably.
Yeah.
It's hard
Um,
to tell for sure because they all kind of look the same when they have helmets on.
yeah, it's hard to tell the difference.
The
Besides
difference
for
is
Nick
mostly
Fury
in
and
their
Dum Dum
haircuts,
and Gabe.
and when they're wearing helmets, you can't see that.
Literally, like, that's why I say the main three are Nick, Dum Dum, and Gabe, and it doesn't really
the
matter
ones we
besides
can
that.
tell apart.
You can Dino gets his name mentioned a lot. That's why I said like he's kind of a little important at the start.
I think
but, like, it
Reb
doesn't really
becomes important once they kind of settle in a bit more.
matter. But we
Because they
see
wanted to be able to sell this book south of the Mason-Dixon line.
yeah. So we go to minutes later. We see Nazis have lined up some French undergrounders against some French resistance against the wall. They're gonna line them up and shoot them down, kill them. But the commandos, of course, show up and save them and shoot down some Nazis. Keep in mind, this is during comics code still, so we're not really seeing people die.
They're
Um,
shooting an awful lot of people in the arms.
Yes. There's a lot of badly hurt people here. Um, but we move forward and we see the guy being held captive that they've come to save, that the Nazis trying to torture the information for D-Day out of. Like we already covered how realistic of a scenario this is. The general's like, "You fool, you cannot hold out forever. We'll get the information we need one way or another. You must know that."
Supposed
Um,
to say that in a faux German accent.
Let's not. It's
I'm
bad
not.
enough reading it.
Yeah, I'm not attempting that. We go to minutes later. We see a couple German generals together. I just keep calling them generals because I don't know what else to call them. I guess officers works, but yeah. They get a call. They're talking about how it seems hopeless to get him to talk, and he's refusing to talk, blah blah. And the other one's like, he must talk. The Führer himself has ordered it. If he does not, and then he's interrupted by the phone, and he has an audible, "Oh, He's like, Hail Hitler. He's like, yes, mein father. And he's getting commands from Hitler. Oh, we get a panel of Hitler. Nice. On the next
Yeah,
page.
I love that panel of Hitler freaking out and issuing contradictory orders through the phone because he's in such a panic.
If the brave does not talk, I will have you shot. I will have everyone shot. Do you hear me? Answer me. No, don't you dare speak while I'm talking.
And I mean, it kind of feels bad to say it, but I think that panel of Hitler is probably the best panel in this entire comic. It's like the one time Kirby took his time with the art.
Yeah.
Because it's a fairly good rendition of him, and honestly, most of the depictions of the Howlers in this aren't very good. They're like really rushed.
I think the art becomes better right away after this issue and this title.
I hope so. It's going to be a long read. Some of those panels of Dum Dum are just painful to look at.
With the other two issues that I've read fresh in my mind, I did not remember how bad the art is in this issue. So in my head, it definitely improves. I think.
I'm guessing Kirby was probably extremely rushed with this
I think he was rushed on this first issue, but since after this it's bi-monthly, I think that helps him.
Yeah. I do know this is one of the titles that was really important to him because he's Jewish and he was a soldier in the Second World War. So this story is very important about him and Stan.
Yeah. And it kind of shows that this is well, I'll talk about it more when we talk about it, like ratings and stuff, but this is one of my favorite, because this is consistently since this started, this has been one of my favorite reads of the order so far. So but yeah, the Nazis have their orders now from Hitler, and we move on and we see that the commandos are the 7 courageous men and 1 girl have already abandoned their vehicle and are silently approaching their heavily guarded fortress on foot, determined to stop the Nazis. I love that they have specified and 1 girl. So they realize this ain't going to be an easy job, but they can take on an army. We still see how Nick's in rough shape, and he even has like a makeshift cast on his wrist here. They're talking about how they need some sleep, but Nick Fury calls them pussies essentially for needing sleep. But they keep moving.
He does have a makeshift cast on. I never noticed that because the colorist didn't notice it, so it's always flesh colored.
Yeah, I didn't know that either until right now. So they see the fortress and they have a bridge to get across to it, which looks like it's like a fallen tower, but they have their way over. So it only takes them 20 minutes to cross that bridge, which is fairly unrealistic and pretty impressive. But they are stopped by an old farmer when they get to the other side with his ox cart.
You've read this whole story, and that's the point where things are getting too unrealistic.
Yeah, I can't stand no more. But
the Howlers are to military tactics what the Human Torch is to flame.
Yep. But we go back to the Nazis still trying to get the information out of Le Havre. And they're like, "Oh, we've decided not to torture you. Actually, we have better ways." They're like, "You have a daughter whom you love, do you not?" She's like, "I know you have a daughter. Well, just pick up the phone." And Le Havre, or whatever his name is Le Brave.
I think it's actually Le Brave, but
yeah, it's Le Brave.
I read it as Le Havre the entire time because that's an actual French name.
And yeah, that's why I was thinking that's why I was thinking Le Havre too, but it's Le Brave. Because he's so brave and not giving the Nazis information. But yeah, he's told to pick up the phone, and the Nazi's like, "Because we have captured your daughter, listen to her for us." And the voice is like, "Father, save me, save me." And Le Brave.
Okay.
And Le Brave.
It probably is about that credible. Having finished this comic, it probably is about that credible.
Well, it must probably is, considering the fact Le Brave, first of all, he's like, "No, not her," but the Nazis pulled up the charade and then revealed to us readers that was not his daughter and they don't have her captured. So
did they actually say it there? I thought
This,
I thought it didn't get revealed until the point when they actually reveal who his daughter is. That
well,
they never had her captured.
well, they say it somewhere, so I just spoiled it anyway. But
Yeah. Might as
they
well
fu-
go all the way then. Spoiler, the woman with the howlers is the daughter.
yeah,
Of course she is. She's the only woman we've seen in this fucking comic.
it's only in ever 2 pages anyway where we learn that,
Yeah.
or I think, or something like that. But, oh no, it's longer than that. But still, but yes, the Nazis had the
Yeah,
charade.
we have the whole thing of Fury with Junior's dynamite first.
So somebody pretended to have a girl's voice, but yeah, Fury is, they make their way for the fortress trying to find the brave. Fury has dynamite. He's just crawling on the floor, somehow not being shot. Explosion, boom. Nazis are not dead, of course. But we
Fury apparently is, since the entire fucking building fell on him.
not that easy. But
There's some stuff that annoyed me about this comic, if you can't tell.
I think I found why there's a difference in our ratings. But Dum Dum and the girl are making a guy take them to Le Brave. They're calling him Otto. They're fighting Nazis along the way. Excuse me. They get to where Le Brave is, and this is where we learn that she's his daughter. As they hug, and Le Brave's like, "Oh, they don't have you after all." So this is where we learn it was a ploy. The guy's like, "We lied to you, of course. It was an imposter's voice you heard. But this is no lie. Tell us what you know now, or else you shall have the privilege of watching your daughter die with the rest of these swine." And
I'm
so
still picturing like some random German soldier in the next room on the phone trying desperately to fake a French woman's voice.
Daddy, help me, help me.
Oh, Monsieur
but-
Papa!
His daughter's like, "Don't do it. Don't do it, father. If D-Day fails, then the whole world is doomed. Our lives mean nothing." And so the guy's like, "You were still her father. Would you condemn your own daughter to death?" And then this is when Nick Fury comes back to life like the Undertaker and fucking starts mowing people down again. And the Commandos fight back, and this is
With the gun he didn't have when the roof fell on him.
Yes, correct. And this is where the Commandos are successful against the whole Nazi army that's here. And D-Day is saved, and so is Le Brave. And family is reunited in the end. And the Commandos will be back for another adventure. Woo!
Yay! Wow, that was painful.
That was a lot, yes. That was 4 stars.
3 for me.
Seriously?
Yeah, it was one of the better things they're writing right now, but it was nowhere near the best stuff they were writing right now.
So can I quote you on that?
Yes,
Right.
I stand by that comment. I just like a lot of the stuff I was making fun of didn't completely ruin it for me.
Different doesn't mean better.
No,
Okay.
No, this is better. This is better than most stuff they're doing right now.
it
The only-
really is.
The only thing that beats this right now is Spider-Man, so...
I'd say the good Fantastic Four are better than it too.
Yeah, some Fantastic Fours are better than this, too.
Yeah, some of them,
None
but
in this
a lot
episode.
of them aren't. No, I will agree with that. This is probably the best comic we covered today.
It is, in my opinion. This is the only one I gave 4 stars.
Yeah.
Oh, my brain
I don't-
hurts.
I really enjoyed this, and I have read 2 other issues besides this one so far, and it continues to be one of my favorite reads going on.
Huh. Who would have
I
thunk it?
have really been enjoying this title. I look forward to when it comes up every time.
Yeah, the only thing that I found this, honestly, the 3 comes mostly because I found this issue a little boring.
Honestly, I think I was a little hyped for this issue, and that might have I might have had a little like I really wanted to enjoy it going in, so that might have bumped it a little.
Yes,
Because
and I was hot and cranky when I read it.
and because I don't know if this is actually the best issue of the series I've read so far compared to the other 2, because arguably, possibly one of the other 2 are better, but the other 2 are both ranked 3 stars. Spoilers, so
Yeah. because I made fun of a lot of stuff. The only thing that really bothered me in terms of the plot was when Fury got a hold of Junior's dynamite and set it off and brought the entire building down on himself. And then right when all the Howlers are going to be executed, he comes crawling out of the rubble with a gun and starts shooting everyone. And he's like, luckily the rocks formed a triangle over my head so I didn't get crushed to death. And it's like, come on, if you have to write something that bullshit to justify that he should have died, just don't have the fucking roof fall on him.
Yeah.
So, in terms of characters, all the characters appear in the next issue that aren't only appearances. A lot of the supporting cast is their only appearance besides Captain Happy Sam Sawyer. He is a regular appearing character. The general for the Nazis will not be reappearing, but Adolf Hitler will be back in Fantastic Four number 21. So, there we go.
Oh yeah, his recurring gimmick. Fucking hate monger.
Oh.
In his purple Ku Klux Klan robes and his tendency to die every issue and just be back with no explanation the next time they use him. That character's hilarious.
Oh.
And yes, the hate monger is Adolf Hitler.
I think,
or at
Dan's
least
in
his
physical pain
clones.
right
I
now.
think the joke is that they're all his clones that were made, and that's why they keep dying at the end of like every story he's in, and then he's just back.
I literally am in pain right now. That's... Oh my god.
Oh, that's the next issue I have to read of Fantastic Four. That's exciting. Any other comments about Sergeant Fury?
Well, I just spoiled the big reveal. Sorry, Ryan. I thought you had gotten past that one.
No, but I think I'd already heard about that before, so it wasn't complete.
Okay, because I was actually really surprised when they finally ripped the hate monger's hood off, and it's literally fucking Hitler.
I definitely knew about that at some point. I think they might change that at some point, but I could be wrong about that.
I kind of hope they don't, because it never stops being funny to me that this like shitty D-tier villain is the pretty much the worst person in human history.
Well, I guess we'll move on to Fantastic Four issue number 14.
Please do.
I'm gonna let Bill take this one, but first I'll run through the credits here. We have The Merciless Puppet Master is the story title, so fuck yes, my boy's back. We have Stan Lee and Jack Kirby we have Steve Ditko on some inks again, interesting, and Steve's doing the cover too, interesting. Yeah, you can tell. That's not a Kirby read for sure. We got Goldberg on colors and Artie Simic on letters. And then we have, this is a February 1963 release, and of course, it's a full-length 22-page story.
And before we start, I have a question.
Okay.
Why the fuck does Namor, on the cover, have little wings on his freaking feet?
Because that's been part of Namor's design from the moment he was invented.
Yeah, but why? Somebody
Kirby?
explain this to me.
There were some good substances going around in the late 30s.
Late 60s?
No, Namor was invented in 1939.
Ooh. Oh, okay. Yeah, a little bit of reefer madness going on there. Okay. I gotcha. I gotcha. Wow. Just wow.
He uses them to fly, too. That's why he can fly, is because he has those little wings.
Yeah, that is the explanation as to why he can fly, by the way, because he has those little wings on his
Yeah, I'm not
fucking
joking. That's
ankle.
actually the thing. They did a thing once where he, the villains wanted to keep him grounded. This was back in the Golden Age. So they taped up his feet so that the wings were under the bandages, and he couldn't fly. And he had to, go somewhere and take the bandages off before he could fly.
My brain hurts. Although, to be fair, I now cannot wait for his appearance in the next movie.
I really hope they actually do that and have the little wings, and he's just like,
if he does not have little,
flap.
if he does not have little wings on his feet in the movie, I am going to be pissed. It's automatically going to lose an entire star. Because he doesn't. Sorry.
We've upset him with reality. This is the revenge for all those puns earlier.
No, I will remove an entire star from my rating of that film if he doesn't have little wings on his feet. I will be so pissed. Oh. Anyway, shall we dive deeply into this issue of Fantastic Four?
Yes.
I mean, if you wanna.
Not really, but let's do it anyway. You're up, Bill.
Yeah, just...
Wow us.
All right.
With Namor and his fantastic flying feet.
The actual comic credits the art inside to Jack Kirby and Dick Ayers, so I think Steve Ditko just did the cover.
Yeah,
Possibly,
you can tell
yeah.
it's Kirby when you look
This
at
is totally
side.
Kirby, and he took a fair bit more time on this comic than he took on the Howlers we just read.
Well, Fantastic Four was always the number one, so
Yeah, this was his.
at this point.
This was his baby.
This is also February, so there's a month's difference here,
Yes. Anyway, we open with the rocket landing back on Earth, and there's a huge crowd welcoming the Fantastic Four back to Earth from their secret space flight. And they zip off to the Baxter building. There's like 3 pages of humorous interactions with the public that I'm just skimming over. And everyone gets back to work except Sue, who stands looking at an aquarium pining after Namor.
Something fishy about that.
No, nothing at all. And I'm not going to give you the dignity of responding to that any other way.
Fine.
We've no-sold everything today.
Wow. This went downhill fast.
Oh my! This is just payback for our delayed recording.
Yes.
And anyway, she continues adjusting her viewer, trying to see Namor, but she's not succeeding. And then we cut away to a hospital where a strange guy in a trench coat and a hat is getting released.
Must be a bad guy.
Of course, he's got a trench coat and a hat, and he's not orange. And Rocky. And he goes out and he's sitting on a park bench whittling something. And then we see that he's trying to think of who to carve. Possibly one of the villains from the Fantastic Four's past. He considers the Mole Man or the Skrulls.
A scroll with the wrong color in, by the way.
Yes. But he gives up on them because the Fantastic Four beat them and might be able to beat them again. So then he goes to Doctor Doom, but he's like, nah, Doctor Doom's somewhere vanished, so can't use him. So now we go around to the front and we see that it's the Puppet Master, as
My
if we
favorite
hadn't
little creep.
figured this out. And he's decided to go with Namor because so far the Fantastic Four have not managed to beat Namor. So we cut over to Namor, who's just discovered evidence that his people had been living in the area of the ocean floor he's currently inhabiting at some time in the recent past, so he can start trying to track down where they are. And then he gets overpowered by the command of the Puppet Master, and so he returns to his quarters and releases the strangest form of undersea life known to man, the wondrous Mento fish, who is not made out of mints but instead has mind control powers of its own. And he uses that fish to hypnotize Sue and have her come to meet him. And so she sneaks out of the Baxter building and goes down to the waterfront and meets him. And he's just like, Hypnofish, and hypnotizes her even more, and then seals her in a big bubble and takes her undersea, which leaves the puppet master chuckling about it. So the puppet master goes back to his lair and makes little models of all the Fantastic Four and coats them in lead paint to make sure that they're nice and toxic to handle. And then he sets them, and the Submariner sends a hologram of himself to tell them that he's got Sue. And they all get mad and try to attack the hologram, but it works about as well as you'd expect. And so he tells them that they need to come to his undersea realm and try to rescue Sue, and then he can destroy them. So they get into that's actually a Navy surplus one-man sub that they were just willing to sell to the puppet master. And so he's sailing around undersea in that, and the Fantastic Four get into the Fantastic Car and fly off downtown. And before they go to sea, Thing wants to say goodbye to Alicia to make sure that, she knows he cares about her if something goes wrong. And she talks him into letting her come along. So they all go and get into their submarine that they have borrowed from Admiral Sawyer. And so they sail undersea in their sub and get attacked by a giant pufferfish, and then they get caught in a whirlpool until Johnny gets out of the sub and flames on so hot that he stops the whirlpool from whirling. And gets back into the sub, and oh no, they sailed right into a giant clam and got caught. So they get caught, and Namor extracts them and takes them all into his hideout, where he shows Sue in a glass air bubble inside a tank with a giant octopus hanging onto the glass bubble on the outside, getting ready to crush it, and that's their motivation to fight him. And so Johnny gets mad and flames on, goes to attack him, but he has these weird anemone things on a staff that feed off heat because they live in the coldest part of the ocean, and so they feed off heat and suck all the fire out of Johnny, which makes him go out. And then Thing attacks Namor and starts trying to fight him, but Namor pops out of his arms and flies up with the little wings on his feet and tricks Thing into grabbing some giant spiky object that I don't think they ever say what it actually is.
A sea urchin?
It's like the size of Ben. Doesn't really look like one, but maybe. And
a
then
giant sea urchin?
Possibly. And then Namor throws this bit of deep sea fungus at him that hits him and bursts into this giant mass of white goo that completely seals him up in a ball. And Namor starts gloating that he's trapped when he busts out of it.
Uh-huh.
And they all start chasing after Namor. Reed catches up to him and makes himself into a giant net and traps Namor in the net, while Thing decides to go rescue Sue. So he jumps into the tank with the octopus and starts fighting with it and grabs it by the arms and throws it clear out of the sub, I believe. It doesn't show where it actually ends up, but I think he somehow managed to throw it completely out of Namor's underwater hideout here. And he frees Sue, and we see the puppet master watching it on a view screen, and he's upset that the Fantastic Four managed to win, so he decides he's going to take control of it and destroy them all. So he takes command of Namor even more and decides to use him to kill them all. And Namor starts telling them how he's going to kill them. And just then, Alicia realizes that she can sense the presence of the puppet master because since she's blind, she has extrasensory perception because that's how that works.
Oh, totally.
And so she says it's the puppet master, and Namor, just as he's about to kill them all with some sort of like deadly gas from a plant that he has, starts wondering why he really wants to kill Sue.
When he just wants to kiss the girl.
Yeah. And so he's pondering it, but he can't actually overpower the command of the puppet master. So he releases the toxic gas, encompassing all the Fantastic Four in a cloud of lethal toxic gas. And because they hadn't figured out proper suspenseful pacing yet in comics, the next line down, instead of on a different page like you would do with such a thing, Reed reveals that if you remember back a couple issues ago where he was experimenting with putting a plastic bag over his head and it was some sort of high-tech gas mask, well, they were all wearing that. And so the gas did not affect them. And they all go to attack, but Sue gets in the way because she still loves Namor and he doesn't know what he's doing. He's clearly under some sort of spell. And just then, the giant octopus sees the Puppet Master's submarine. And so the Puppet Master starts desperately trying to carve the spare squid, giant octopus puppet, out of the radioactive clay. But before he can do it, the octopus gets a hold of the submarine and humps the crap out of it. And Namor's hideout starts flooding. So, since the Puppet Master's no longer paying attention, Namor's freed of his controls. So he asks Sue if she wants to come stay underwater with him. And she's not interested at the moment, so he's like, fine. And lets them go. They get into their submarine and sail off. And Namor is wondering what happened because he doesn't really understand why they were suddenly smashing up his undersea hideout. And the Puppet Master laments the fact that he can't actually control something completely brainless like the giant octopus. And that's how the story ends.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry, I can't think of anything about the story I liked.
Yeah, this one was a letdown for me. I only gave this one 2 stars, and that's pretty wild considering I had my boy Puppet Master. I wish the story was more about him, though.
Yeah, this one for me was still a 3-star story, but it was very low on the 3-star.
That's what I'm saying.
Ow.
Actually, wait, I'm wrong. This was for me a 4-star story.
Even worse.
Oh my God, what were you
And
thinking?
I don't know what I was thinking when I gave it 4 stars because both times I've re-looked at it, it's definitely just a 3-star story. I think it was just me being a Namor mark.
Okay, that's entirely fair.
Because,
the
story was fine. There was nothing I disliked about it.
Okay.
But
Other than
absolutely
it exists.
nothing of any significance happens in it. Like, excluding them learning the Puppet Master is alive. Which doesn't even necessarily matter since his submarine got attacked by a giant octopus that suddenly had grown to be bigger than it. And so, this story could have never happened, and no one would miss it. Like, nothing consequential happens here whatsoever.
I find it interesting that Sue has become sort of an object of Namor's affections. You know, that is amusing. But I just... there's almost like no point in this story existing. Like, I don't know. It's stupid.
It is.
It's just painful.
This was a lot of this was one of the more painful. I want to like Namor, but some of these
Yeah.
Namor appearances early on in the reading order found really painful.
I'm with Ryan on this. I do want to like Namor. I think he's a great, unique villain, but they're not doing anything with him.
Yeah, I can't even really defend the 4. I don't remember what I was thinking when I gave that.
They're giving him goofy gimmicks that don't stick and just all this other shit, and it's not clicking yet. I will say very soon we have a Fantastic Four annual. The first Fantastic Four annual is coming up, and I'm very excited for that because Namor gets some redemption in that. It's a very good story, so I'll be excited for us to get to that one. But yeah, some of these, this is one of the times I had issues with Namor. It didn't work.
Yeah, this is definitely one of his weakest appearances, and the only thing I can think of is that when I rated this, I was being a mark.
You might have also just been like, this was objectively not the best stretch. You might have been, and you didn't have Sergeant Fury to read either when you read this, so you might have just been in a bit of a slump with the order that it seemed better than it was too.
That's very possible, because I would not have given it a 4 reading it now.
Yeah, I guess my point.
I stand by a 3. Like, I think a 3 was reasonable for my enjoyment of this comic. Because, well, it was inconsequential. There was nothing offensive about it. It was a comic that exists.
Yeah,
it stuck to continuity too. So
I guess my point is that you've got the Puppet Master, who has the ability to make these people fight each other. Okay, that's totally cool. That's a great gimmick. You have Namor, who is all powerful from the looks of things. Who could take out the Fantastic Four without breaking a sweat. He loves Sue. That's totally cool too. But what you get is a Puppet Master doing this, and it's kind of just this piddling little stupid fight with gimmicks to defeat the Fantastic Four that are ridiculous. I'm going to screw you up with a giant sea urchin, and I'm going to screw you up with sea glue.
Yeah, that was the thing they were trying for a bit with Namor.
That's what I was getting at with my issues with Namor.
What's the point, right? It's just silly.
Oh, another problem here too is realistically, even though I'm a mark for Puppet Master, his return should have been a bigger deal, and it also probably shouldn't have been so soon. Even though it wasn't like it could have been sooner, but it should have been held off.
He was literally dead. They should have made a bigger deal about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just like I say, just silly. The fighting part.
Yeah, and I mean, this entire issue was we haven't had the Fantastic Four fight Namor for a little while.
Yeah, which is totally fine, right? He's a great villain, but. It's just I don't know. It's just the way he defeats them.
Yeah, the big thing that held this one down for me on this reading compared to whenever I gave it that 4 is the fact that no one really has any agency in this story except for the Puppet Master, and the Puppet Master does fuck all with it. Because Namor's mind controlled for the entire thing. So everything he does is really under the control of the Puppet Master trying to get him to beat Fantastic Four, and he doesn't even remember it when it's over.
It's another case of Namor not even wanting to fight them, really.
Yeah. But this one's even worse because at the end he doesn't even know he has fought them.
Yeah.
Like, literally, he has no clue that he ever fought them.
Yeah, no, he doesn't know what happened also.
Yeah, and the Fantastic Four... Well, Sue is double mind controlled by Namor to get her to capturing range and then captured. And then the other Fantastic Four go to rescue her and immediately get mind controlled. And then the entire time they're fighting Namor, they're fighting under Puppet Master's control. So the entire fight doesn't matter because no one wanted it. No one had anything to gain from it. The only person to gain was Puppet Master, who's neither side even sees.
Yeah, that's something else too, because I mean, there's no actual resolution to it.
Yeah, he just gets attacked by a giant octopus.
Or humped, as you said before.
Yeah, that was another despair squid joke.
Yeah, there's some Little Mermaid jokes going on here, and some Red Dwarf jokes.
Yeah, I didn't catch any of the references, so.
Okay. Yeah.
In Red Dwarf, a giant despair squid tries to hump Starbug to death.
Yeah.
Lovely.
They're trying to eat us, kill us, or hump us. You got to see that episode, Ryan.
It's one of the best.
It is brilliant. Anyways,
I guess we'll tease projects and episodes to come now. Next week, for the main series here, Route 616, we have a pretty good episode, I'd say. Well, by pretty good episode, I'm literally only thinking of one comic here, but we are going to start with Tales to Astonish number 43, and then we are going to go into... No, I just was making sure I didn't miss something here with Fantastic Four. I just realized I didn't talk about characters' appearances. Nothing important. Good. So, yes.
It's Namor and Puppet Master. They're both coming back. We know it.
Tales to Astonish 43. Okay, this is the actual good Ant-Man story. This one's good. Can't wait to talk about this one next week. But then we have Tales of Suspense issue 41, our next Iron Man story. What that one's about? Good question.
It's Doctor Strange, but not that one.
Oh, yes, it's the evil Doctor Strange. Thank you. It's a really shitty Iron Man story, is what it is. So
I only found it moderately shitty.
Good for you. So, yes, okay. Tales to Astonish 43, Mad Master Time. We have the Stronghold of Doctor Strange and Tales of Suspense number 41. I had to get through my tabs. They were a fucking mess. Journey into Mystery. We are back with Thor story, and we have the first appearance of the Radioactive Man here.
This is not his best appearance.
No. We have the spotlight of the issue as we see the debut of Dr. Octopus in Amazing Spider-Man number 3, the best Spider-Man villain. We have Strange Tales number 109.
I caught that, and you're full of shit.
You're just objectively wrong, Dan. The sooner you own that fact.
I am not objectively wrong. If anybody's objective, it's you.
We have...
But not objectively.
We have Strange Tales 109, which fucking sucks. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Oh, I get that.
We'll have some discussion about that one. I actually moderately liked this one.
I didn't give it 1 star, so it's not completely awful. But then we have the Creature from the Cosmos as the Wasp debuts in Tales to Astonish number 44. So it's a pretty big episode. We have debuts of some big characters here in Radioactive Man, who isn't good here but becomes a bigger character, Dr. Octopus, and Wasp. So
Yay.
Big episode.
Yay.
Yes.
Yeah, and
big yay.
One of the two traditionally awful... Actually... both of the traditionally awful stories in this set are both decent stories this time.
The first Tales to Astonish is very good, surprisingly good. The second one with the debut of Ross was actually a bit of a disappointment, but it's still decent. The Strange Tales is not the worst.
Just because it was like the only time in this series that Wasp has written well.
I've enjoyed Wasp writing overall.
You might not have hit the point of truly useless Wasp then.
Well, I haven't gotten Giant Man yet, so...
I think she becomes useless before he becomes Giant Man, but... she definitely has a bad case of 1960s female.
Well, I must be about to hit the point then.
I think so,
that's fine.
because there's a spell where she's fairly pointless. Although she's never treated as badly as Sue.
I
or
was gonna
Jean
say,
Grey.
so she's Sue Richards then, or
She gets away a little
Or Sue
better
Storm,
than
I
either
guess.
of them, but
they're not married yet.
yeah. But no, Sue does not get, or Jan does not get treated well in this series.
So yes, the pretty big episode coming next week. Actually, we have 2 or 3 big episodes coming in a row in terms of certain characters. So I guess I'll just tease now that in 2 weeks' time we have the debut of the actual Doctor Strange that everybody remembers, and that is a hero. So that's gonna be fun. But we won't get too far ahead of ourselves here. And then, of course, as we've talked about last week, decent amount. Next month we do have the Crew 616 Choose On episode about about Batman movies. So that's gonna be fun. And if you haven't seen the last 2, 30 Days of Night or Brightburn, go and check those out.
Yeah.
Besides that, if you're listening to this on YouTube, please leave a like, subscribe. I'm like fucking, I'm tongue-tied right now. Holy shit! Please leave a like, subscribe, comment, and even share if you would like to. We are also available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. So go check us out there if you prefer any of those. And on Spotify, there is a poll each week for what your favorite story is, so let us know. And also leave some comments on YouTube or on social media. Follow me at Japic1 on social media. Give us some comments and say what you think about the podcast. So
yeah. Tell us how wonderful we are.
Please. Tell Bill and I how wonderful we are, and shit on Dan.
Okay, I did not agree to this.
That's all right. You're old. You'll forget we said it in like 2 minutes.
Said what?
Make sure to leave in the comments how wrong Dan's opinions are on some Marvel properties, especially Spider-Man. No.
We don't cover Spider-Man in this issue. Feel free to let him know how wrong he is on Iron Man instead for this one.
Okay, I did. Never mind. My God, what's the point? You two and your fucking Spider-Man fanboy crap. Yeah.
And while you're at it, tell Ryan that he needs to respect apes more.
Well, okay, that's fair. You damn dirty human. You wouldn't get that, would you, Ryan? That made no sense to you, did it?
I think that line's famous enough to have transcended actually having seen the movie.
I would hope so.
Well, I mean, I know the reference from Home Alone, but it might be older than that.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
It's from the movie from Home Alone, right?
It's
no,
not
the movie the kids watching.
It's not from Home Alone.
No.
No. Oh God, I feel.
Or the movie that they use in Home Alone. It was a Planet of the Apes reference, Ryan.
Oh.
From the
that
first
would have been my next guess.
Carlton Heston.
It even gets referenced on the fucking Simpsons.
Yeah, I'm not even done season 2 of that. I haven't watched any of the Planets of the Apes movies. We're just completely derailing at the end of this episode, but I haven't watched any of the Planets of the Apes movies.
All right, so instead of getting after Ryan for apes, get after Ryan for not watching any media that's relevant to the last 60 years of entertainment.
Yeah. Hey, do you know how long it took us to convince Ryan to watch The Thing?
Tell them that they're as much of a disappointment to us as I'm sure Dan's jokes are to everyone listening.
Oh.
I think I broke Dan. I don't know.
How did
he may have just logged off.
Fuck. Yeah, no, there's a lot of classic stuff I haven't watched. I was too busy watching wrestling growing up, so yeah.
No,
but anyways, we'll end this episode now before Dan leaves out of frustration, and we will see you all next time. Have a great day. We'll see you next week, and peace out.
Have a good one.
See you later.
We have.